Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Synergetic Games. My name is Natalie, and today we are going to be playing. We're reading. That's what we're doing. We're reading. My mouse broke the other day, and I was calm down. And I was plugging the new one in earlier today, and my webcam kept kamikazing off the top of my laptop. So if there's like 1,000,001 camera adjustments today, that's why. And I'm very paranoid, so give me a moment. Just checking my audio is fine. Okay, that's fine. If you can't hear me, I apologize. You're live in the chat of the stream. I'm already watching. Yep. It does that. It usually announces it before. I mean, it's the first thing it usually does. To be fair, though, I think it likes to do it like a minute or two beforehand. Just be like, "Hi, we're here. Hi." So that's kind of where I think Twitch Stream Elements is at, because it usually clocks it like 3 or 4 minutes into the countdown. But yeah, so I went clothes shopping today, and they're gonna be clothes that I'm gonna break out when the weather starts warming up a bit. Because like we went shopping, and it was. I alt-tabbed out of Minecraft and randomly caught your Discord post. Well, good timing. Good timing then. Quite, improbable, some might say. And I say improbable because that's going to be the subject of today, really, is improbability. But I'm glad that you caught me, and I'm glad that you're here. You're going clothes shopping tomorrow. Excellent. Everybody's doing it. But yeah, we went to Asda for the first time in ages. And we thought, we'll grab some clothes, and then we'll have a wander around the shop. So we were there for maybe like a couple hours. And it was really nice and lovely and warm and sunny, and we kind of drove there and had the windows down, hair flowing in the winds of the car, you know, that sort of thing. And then we went for a wander around the shop once we'd picked clothes and things that we were gonna get. We got to the candle aisle. And we were like, oh, it smells really lovely down here. So we proceeded to then sniff like everything, all the scented candles. And then at one point we got to a jar, and we thought, we didn't like it. It was a terrible candle for us anyway. But we tried to put the lid back on. It was one of those big Yankee candles. Hey, thank you for the resub. Wah 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 wah. Exactly like that. It was like one of those big Yankee candles, you know, the big jar ones with the lid. So we were trying to put the lid back on, and then it just shattered. Just the whole thing just shattered. And then we were like, oh God, no. We put it on the shelf, and then it shattered some more. Replace the real one with it. I feel like I'd be faster at it than like the actual sound alert, because that takes a few seconds. But so we proceeded to break a candle accidentally. But we told the shop people, but like it was really weird. Because you just, it's one of those ones that you push down, and then there's a plastic bit, and it's like a vacuumy type seal, feels like. and it just popped, and then another bit popped, and actually I bled. The candle hurt me. Just, I think a little shard of glass popped violently into my arm. None, because that sort of thing. No, it is very bad luck. I have much of it. Nothing in my life goes well, but you know, that's fine. It's fine, I'll deal with it. But like, we just kind of wandered around for a bit. We were there for like a couple hours, and that was the worst thing to have happened to me all day. So to be fair, I've had an extremely mild day. And when I got home, I kind of sat down, I read ahead a little bit for the book, and then I kind of decided that, you know, I've read it now. I don't want to wait. But also I was very sad coming out of Asden to find the sun is gone. It's like I was literally only in there for a few hours, and the sun is gone. It's not even fair. It's not fair. And I don't even like the sun that much, but sometimes you're like, oh, what a nice sunny day. And then you go outside and the sun goes away. I'm gonna turn that down a bit, I think. But so I was reading ahead, and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't. Yeah, we had a really slow wander around. We weren't gonna we budgeted very sensibly. We were only in there for a few clothes and a few bits and bobs for dinner. And then we were just kind of like, yeah, we got time. And we wandered around Asda for like an hour, which is surprising, I know. But we had a lot of fun joking about a bunch of stuff. It's surprising what you can get distracted by. Mostly candles, apparently. Mostly candles. We could have spent ages in like the homeware section, to be fair, but then we would have been too tempted to actually buy some stuff that we didn't really need. Well, okay, we need, but we can't really afford. So like that is an aisle that we just can't afford to venture down, or we'll be filled with sadness and regret, basically. So clothes and a few bits and bobs it is, and we just wasted some time in Asda. That's what we did. But anyway, as I was saying, I was reading this, and then I kind of decided that I'd read it now, and I didn't really want to wait until like 10. So I figured we'll do it now, nice and early, and then we can all have an evening. Because to be honest, the alternative was have a nap, and it's like late enough that I also don't want to have a nap, or I won't even sleep. So like, my plan is we'll do this, and then I'll have an early night, and you guys can do whatever you like. That's my plan. I don't know about you, but that's my plan. Okay, so Chapter 9. Oh yes, in Chapter 8 they were rescued from the vacuum of space, by the way. Quick recap. Sounds planny. It was pretty planny, I'm proud of myself. Chapter 9. A computer chatted to itself in alarm, as if it noticed an airlock open and close itself for no apparent reason. This was because Reason was in fact out to lunch. A hole had just appeared in the galaxy. It was exactly a nothingth of a second long, a nothingth of an inch wide, and quite a lot of millions of light years from end to end. As it closed up, lots of paper hats and party balloons fell out of it and drifted through the universe. A team of seven 3-foot-high market analysts fell out of it and died, partly of asphyxiation, partly of surprise. 239,000 lightly fried eggs fell out of it too, materializing in a large wobbly heap on the famine-struck land of Pogril in the Panzel system. The whole Pogrel tribe had died out from famine, except for one last man who died of cholesterol poisoning some weeks later. The nothing of a second for which the whole existed reverberated backwards and forwards through time in a most improbable fashion. Somewhere in the deeply remote past, it seriously traumatized a small random group of atoms drifting through the empty sterility of space and made them cling together in the most extraordinarily unlikely patterns. These patterns quickly learned to copy themselves. This was part of what was so extraordinary about the pattern, and went on to cause massive trouble on every planet they drifted to. That was how life began in the universe. 5 wild event maelstroms swirled in vicious storms of unreason and spewed up a pavement. On the pavement lay Ford Prefect and Arthur Dent, gulping like half-spent fish. "There you are," gasped Ford, scrabbling for a fingerhold on the pavement as it raced through the third reach of the unknown. "I told you I'd think of something." "Oh, sure," said Arthur, "sure." "Bright idea of mine," said Ford, "to find a passing spaceship to get rescued by it." The real universe arched sickeningly away beneath them. Various pretend ones flitted silently by, like mountain goats. Primal light exploded, splattering space-time as with gobbets of junket. Time blossomed, matter shrank away. The highest prime number coalesced quietly in a corner and hid itself away forever. "Come off it," said Arthur. "The chances against it were astronomical." "Don't knock it. It worked," said Ford. "What sort of ship are we in?" asked Arthur as the pit of eternity yawned beneath them. "I don't know," said Ford. "I haven't opened my eyes yet." "No, nor have I," said Arthur. The universe jumped, froze, quivered, and splayed out in several unexpected directions. Arthur and Ford opened their eyes and looked about in considerable surprise. "Good God," said Arthur. "It looks just like the seafront at Southend." "Hell, I'm relieved to hear you say that," said Ford. "Why?" "Because I must be going mad." "Perhaps you are. Perhaps you only thought I said it." Ford thought about this. "Well, did you say it or didn't you?" he asked. "I think so," said Arthur. "Well, perhaps we're both going mad." "Yes," said Arthur. "We'd be mad, all things considered, to think this was Southend." "Well, do you think this is Southend?" "Oh, yes. So do I." "Therefore we must be mad." "Nice day for it." "Yes," said a passing maniac. "Who was that?" said Arthur. "Who? The man with the 5 heads and the elderberry bush full of kippers?" "Yes." "I don't know. Just someone." "Ah." They both sat on the pavement and watched with a certain unease as huge children bounced heavily along the sand and wild horses thundered through the sky, taking fresh supplies of reinforced railings to the uncertain areas. "You know," said Arthur with a slight cough, "if this is Southend, there's something very odd about it." "You mean the way the sea stays steady as a rock, and the buildings keep washing up and down?" said Ford. "Yes, I thought that was odd too. In fact," he continued, as with a huge bang Southend split itself into 6 equal segments, which danced and span giddily around each other in lewd and licentious formations. "There is something altogether strange going on." Wild yowling noises of pipes and strings seared through the wind. Hot doughnuts popped out of the road for 10 pence each. Horrid fish stormed out of the sky, and Arthur and Ford decided to make a run for it. They plunged through heavy walls of sound, mountains of archaic thought, valleys of mood music, bad shoe sessions, and footling bats, and suddenly heard a girl's voice. It sounded quite a sensible voice, but it just said, 2 to the power of 100,000 to 1 against, and falling. And that was all. Ford skidded down a beam of light and span around trying to find the source of the voice, but could see nothing he could seriously believe in. "What was that voice?" shouted Arthur. "I don't know," yelled Ford. "I don't know. It sounded like a measurement of probability." "Probability? What do you mean?" "Probability, you know, like 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 5 to 4 against. It said 2 to the power of 100,001 against. That's pretty improbable, you know." A million gallon vat of custard upended itself over them without warning. "What does that mean?" cried Arthur. "What, the custard?" "No, the measurement of improbability." I don't know at all. I think we're on some kind of spaceship." "I can only assume," said Arthur. I can only assume, said Arthur, "that this is not the first-class compartment." Bulges appeared on the fabric of space-time. Great, ugly bulges. "Ah!" said Arthur as he felt his body softening and bending in unusual directions. "The south end seems to be melting away. The stars are swirling. A dust bowl. My legs are drifting off into the sunset. My left arm's come off too." A frightening thought struck him. "Hell," he said. "How am I going to operate my digital watch now?" He wound his eyes desperately around in Ford's direction. "Ford," he said, "you're turning into a penguin. Stop it." Again came the voice. 2 to the power of 75,000 to 1 against and falling. Ford waddled around his pond in a furious circle. "Hey, who are you?" he quacked. "Where are you? What's going on? And is there any way of stopping it?" "Please relax," said the voice pleasantly, like a stewardess in an airliner with only one wing and 2 engines, one of which is on fire. "You're perfectly safe." "But that's not the point," raged Ford. "The point is that I am now a perfectly safe penguin, and my colic here is rapidly running out of limbs." "It's all right. I've got them back now," said Arthur. 2 to the power of 50,000 to 1 against and falling, said the voice. "Admittedly," said Arthur, "they're longer than I usually like them, but..." "Isn't there anything?" squawked Ford in avian fury. "You feel you ought to be telling us?" The voice cleared its throat. A giant petit foie lolloped off into the distance. "Welcome," the voice said, "to the starship Heart of Gold." The voice continued. "Please do not be alarmed," it said, "by anything you see or hear around you. You are bound to feel some initial ill effects as you have been rescued from certain death at an improbability level of 2 to the power of 276,000 to 1 against, possibly much higher. We're now cruising at a level of 2 to the power of 25,000 and 1 against and falling. And we'll be restoring normality just as soon as we're sure what normal is. Anyway, thank you. 2 to the power of 20,000 to 1 falling. To 1 falling. To 1 against and falling, said the voice. The voice cut out. Ford and Arthur were in a small, luminous, pink cubicle. Ford was wildly excited. "Arthur," he said, "this is fantastic. We've been picked up by a ship powered by the infinite improbability drive. This is incredible. I heard rumors about it before. They were all officially denied, but they must have done it. They've built the improbability drive. Arthur, Arthur, what's happening?" Arthur had just jammed himself against the door to the cubicle, trying to hold it closed. But it was ill-fitting. Tiny, furry little hands were squeezing themselves through the cracks. Their fingers were ink-stained. Tiny voices chattered insanely. Arthur looked up. "Ford," he said, "there's an infinite number of monkeys outside who want to talk to us about this script for Hamlet they've worked out." Chapter 10. The infinite improbability drive is a wonderful new method of crossing vast interstellar distances in a mere nothingth of a second, without all that tedious mucking about in hyperspace. It was discovered by a lucky chance, and then developed into a governable form of propulsion by the Galactic Government's research team on Damagran. This, briefly, is the story of its discovery. The principle of generating small amounts of finite improbability by simply hooking the logic circuits of a Bambleweenie 57 submeson brain to an atomic vector plotter suspended in a strong Brownian motion producer, say a nice hot cup of tea, were of course well understood, and such generators were often used to break the ice at parties by making all the molecules in the hostess's undergarments leap simultaneously 1 foot to the left, and in accordance with the theory of indeterminacy. Many respectable physicists said that they weren't going to stand for this, particularly because it was a debasement of science, but mostly because they didn't get invited to those sort of parties. Another thing they couldn't stand was the perpetual failure they encountered in trying to construct a machine which could generate the infinite improbability field needed to flip a spaceship across the mind-paralyzing distances between the furthest stars. And in the end, they grumpily announced that such a machine was virtually impossible. Then, one day, a student who had been left to sweep up the lab after a particularly unsuccessful party found himself reasoning this way. If, he thought to himself, such a machine is a virtual impossibility, then it must be logical to be a finite improbability. So all I have to do in order to make one is to work out exactly how improbable it is, feed that figure into the finite improbability generator, give it a fresh cup of really hot tea, and turn it on. He did this, and was rather startled to discover that he'd managed to create the long-sought-after golden infinite improbability generator out of thin air. It startled him even more just after he was awarded the Galactic Institute's Prize for Extreme Cleverness. He got lynched. He got lynched by a rampaging mob of respectable physicists who finally realized that the one thing they really couldn't stand was a smartass. Chapter 11. The improbability-proof control cabin in the Heart of Gold looked like a perfectly conventional spaceship, except that it was perfectly clean because it was so new. Some of the control seats hadn't even had the plastic wrap taken off yet. The cabin was mostly white, oblong, and about the size of a smallish restaurant. In fact, it wasn't perfectly oblong. The 2 long walls were raked round in a slight parallel curve, and all the angles and corners of the cabin were contoured in excitingly chunky shapes. The truth of the matter is that it would have been a great deal simpler and more practical to build the cabin as an ordinary 3-dimensional oblong room, but then the designers would have got very miserable. As it was, the cabin looked excitingly purposeful, with large video screens ranged over the controls and guidance system panels on the concave wall, and long banks of computers set into the convex wall. In one corner, a robot sat humped, its gleaming brushed steel head hanging loosely between its gleaming brushed steel knees. It, too, was fairly new, but though it was beautifully constructed and polished, it somehow looked as if the various parts of its more or less humanoid body didn't quite fit properly. In fact, they fitted perfectly well, but something in its bearing suggested that they might have fitted better. Zaphod Beeblebrox paced nervously up and down the cabin, brushing his hands over pieces of gleaming equipment and giggling with excitement. Trillian sat hunched over a clump of instruments, reading off figures. Her voice was carried around the tannoy system of the whole ship. 5 to 1 against and falling, she said. 4 to 1 against and falling. 3 to 1, 2, 1. Probability factor of 1 to 1. We have normality. I repeat, we have normality. She turned her microphone off, then turned it back on, with a slight smile, and continued. Anything you still can't cope with is therefore your own problem. Please relax. You will be sent for soon. Zaphod burst out in annoyance. Who are they, Trillian? Trillian span in her seat to face him and shrugged. Just a couple of guys we seem to have picked up in open space, she said. Section ZZ9 plural Z alpha. Yes, well, that's the very sweet thought, Trillian, continued Zaphod. But do you really think it's wise under the circumstances? I mean, here we are, on the run and everything. We must have the police of half the galaxy after us by now, and we stopped to pick up hitchhikers. Okay, so 10 out of 10 for style, but minus several million for good thinking, yeah? He tapped irritably on a control panel. Trillian quietly moved his hand before he tapped anything important. Whatever Zaphod's qualities of mind might include, dash, bravado, conceit, he was mechanically inept and could easily blow the ship up with an extravagant gesture. Trillian had come to suspect that the main reason why he had had such a wild and successful life was that he never really understood the significance of anything he did. Zaphod, she said patiently. They were floating unprotected in open space. You wouldn't want them to have died, would you? Well, you know, no, not as such, but... Not as such? Not die as such? But... Trillian cocked her head to one side. Well, maybe someone else might have picked them up later. A second later and they would have been dead. Yeah, so if you'd taken the trouble to think about the problem a little bit longer, it would have gone away. You'd have been happy to let them die. Well, you know, not happy as such, but... Anyway, said Trillian, turning back to the controls, I didn't pick them up. What do you mean? Who picked them up then? The ship did. Huh? The ship did, all by itself. Huh? Whilst we were in improbability drive. But that's incredible. No, Zaphod, just very, very improbable. Yeah. Look, Zaphod, she said, patting his arm. Don't worry about the aliens. They're just a couple of guys, I expect. I'll send the robot down to get them and bring them up here. Hey, Marvin! In the corner, the robot's head swung up sharply, but then it wobbled imperceptibly. It pulled itself to its feet as if it was about 5 pounds heavier than it actually was, and made what an outside observer would have thought was a heroic effort to cross the room. It stopped in front of Trillian and seemed to stare through her left shoulder. I think you ought to know I'm feeling very depressed, it said. Its voice was low and hopeless. Oh, God, muttered Zaphod, and slumped into a seat. Well, said Trillian in a bright, compassionate tone, here's something to occupy you and keep your mind off things. It won't work, droned Marvin. I have an exceptionally large mind. Marvin, warned Trillian. All right, said Marvin. What do you want me to do? Go down to number 2 entry bay and bring the 2 aliens up here under surveillance. With a microsecond pause and a finely calculated micro-modulation of pitch and timbre, nothing you could actually take offense at, Marvin managed to convey his utter contempt and horror of all things human. Hi, Aggressively. Welcome to Story Time. I don't know if you've ever caught it before, actually, but we're reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. How you been, buddy? You haven't? Well, first time for everything. Welcome. Oh. How about this? Is that better? Turn it down a wee bit. Does this sound better? My mic's not as high as it could go, but, like, some things might be a bit, I don't know. I had to abuse my computer today, so there's that. You don't hear it at all now. I think the previous song ended. You hadn't noticed an issue. Okay. This is probably fine. I don't think there's anything else making any weird noises. Is it? Okay, good. Hey, thank you so much for the sub. How many months is this? 7 months in a row. Oh my gosh, really? It's Safwad. It is not Safwad. Fight me, man. Fight me. There is no Y in that. You hadn't noticed an issue. It's one of those things, though. You know, when you're listening to an audiobook or something and the reader of it pronounces something wrong, it's like Stephen Fry saying Axio when he's reading the Harry Potter books. It's wrong and you shouldn't, so stop it. It's Accio. It's Accio. I will die on that hill. Just putting it out there. Yeah. Well, maybe not in a row, but there you go. Was it on the radio? Okay, well, I didn't know that. There you go. I'm still reading it as Zaflot. I'm sorry, it's gonna happen. You may present me with truth and I will still do it my own way. Here we are. Marvin managed to convey his utter contempt and horror of all things human. Just that, he said. Yes, said Trillian firmly. I won't enjoy it, said Marvin. Zaphod leapt out of his seat. She's not asking you to enjoy it, he shouted. Just do it, will you? All right, said Marvin, like the tolling of a great cracked bell. I'll do it. Good, snapped Zaphod. Great. Thank you. Marvin turned and lifted his flat-topped triangular red eyes up towards him. I'm not getting you down at all, am I? He said, pathetically. No, no, Marvin, lilted Trillian. That's just fine, really. I wouldn't like to think I was getting you down. No, don't worry about that, the lilt continued. You just act as comes natural and everything will be just fine. You're sure you don't mind? Probed Marvin. No, no, Marvin, lilted Trillian. That's just fine, really. Just part of life. Marvin flashed him an electronic look. Life, said Marvin. Don't talk to me about life. He turned hopelessly on his heel and lugged himself out of the cabin. With a satisfied hum and a click of the door the door closed behind him. I don't think I can stand that robot much longer, Zaphod, growled Trillian. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Zaphod in the film. Anyway. So that's where I get it. But, anyway, it's up for debate. Friendly debate. The Encyclopedia Galactica defines a robot as a mechanical apparatus designed to do the work of a man. The marketing division of Sirius Cybernetics Corporation defines a robot as your plastic pal who's fun to be with. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy defines the marketing division of the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation as a bunch of mindless jerks who'll be the first against the wall when the revolution comes, with a footnote to the effect that the editors would welcome applications for anyone interested in taking over the post of robotics correspondent. Curiously enough, an edition of the Encyclopedia Galactica that had the good fortune to fall through a time warp from 1,000 years in the future defined the marketing division of the Sirius Cybernetic Corporation as a bunch of mindless jerks who were the first against the wall when the revolution came. They fought. Okay. Well, we'll see if things change. I make no promises. The pink cubicle had winked out of existence. The monkeys had sunk away to a better dimension. Ford and Arthur found themselves in the embarkation area of the ship. It was rather smart. "I think this ship's brand new," said Ford. "How can you tell?" said Arthur. "Have you got some exotic device that measures the age of metal?" "No, I just found the sales brochure lying on the floor." "It's a lot of 'the universe can be yours' stuff." "Ah, look, I was right." Ford jabbed at one of the pages and showed it to Arthur. It says, "Sensational new breakthrough in improbability physics. As soon as the ship's drives reaches infinite improbability, it passes through every point in the universe. Be the envy of other major governments." Wow, this is big league stuff. Ford hunted excitedly through the technical specs of the ship, occasionally gasping with astonishment at what he read. Clearly, galactic astrotechnology had moved ahead during the years of his exile. Arthur listened for a short while, but being unable to understand the vast majority of what Ford was saying, he began to let his mind wander. Trailing his fingers along the edge of an incomprehensible computer bank, he reached out and pressed an invitingly large red button on a nearby panel. The panel lit up, and the words, "Please do not press this button again." The panel lit up with the words, "Please do not press this button again." He shook himself. "Listen," said Ford, who was still engrossed in the sales brochure. "They can make a big thing out of the ship's cybernetics, a new generation of Sirius Cybernetics Corporation robots and computers with the new GPP feature." "GPP feature?" said Arthur. "What's that?" Oh, it says genuine people personalities." "Oh," said Arthur. "Sounds ghastly." A voice from behind them said, "It is." The voice was low and hopeless, and accompanied by a slight clanking sound. They spun around and saw an abject steel man standing hunched in the doorway. "What?" they said. "Ghastly," continued Marvin. "It all is absolutely ghastly. Just don't even talk about it. Look at this door," he said, stepping through it. The irony circuits cut into his voice modulator as he mimicked the style of the sales brochure. "All the doors on this spaceship have a cheerful and sunny disposition. It is their pleasure to open for you and their satisfaction to close again with the knowledge of a job well done." As the door closed behind them, it became apparent that it did indeed have a satisfied, sigh-like quality to it. It said. Marvin regarded it with cold loathing, whilst its logic circuits chattered with disgust and tinkered with the concept of directing physical violence against it. Further circuits cut in, saying, "Why bother? What's the point? Nothing is worth getting involved in." Further circuits amused themselves by analyzing the molecular components of the door and of the humanoid's brain cells. For a quick encore, they measured the level of hydrogen emissions in the surrounding cubic parsec of space, and then shut down again in boredom. A spasm of despair shook the robot's body as he turned. "Come on," he droned. "I've been ordered to take you down to the bridge. Here I am, brain the size of a planet, and they ask me to take you down to the bridge. Call that job satisfaction? 'Cause I don't." He turned and walked back to the hated door. Excuse me," said Ford, following after him. "Which government owns this ship?" Marvin ignored him. "You watch this door," he muttered. "It's about to open again. I can tell by the intolerable air of smugness it suddenly generates." With an ingratiating little whine, the door slid open again, and Marvin stomped through. I haven't actually. I wouldn't be sure how to approach that, to be real. I don't know, they'd actually force me to read things, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I don't know how they'd go about. I think publishing companies would have to approach authors and things about it to get a deal. So I don't know. I think it would be a very unlikely thing for me to do professionally. That's all I can say. Besides, I suppose it depends on whose book it is. It would be a lot of fun. I think, but it's seriously unlikely. For the silliness, just like acting. Yeah, probably, yeah. Marvin stomped through. "Come on," he said. The others followed quickly, and the door slid back into place with pleased little clicks and whirs. "Thank you, the marketing division of Sirius Cybernetics Corporation," said Marvin, and trudged desolately from the gleaming curved corridor that stretched out before them. "Let's build robots with genuine people personalities," they said. So they tried it out with me. I'm a personality prototype. You can tell, can't you? Ford and Arthur muttered embarrassed little disclaimers. "I hate that door," continued Marvin. "I'm not getting you down at all, am I?" "Which government?" started Ford again. "No government owns it," snapped the robot. "It's been stolen." "Stolen?" mimicked Marv. Stolen? Mimicked Marvin. "By who?" asked Ford. Zaphod Beeblebrox. Something extraordinary happened to Ford's face. At least 5 entirely separate and distinct expressions of shock and amazement piled up on it in a jumbled mess. His left leg, which was in mid-stride, seemed to have difficulty in finding the floor again. He stared at the robot and tried to entangle some dartoid muscles. "Zaphod Beeblebrox," he said weakly. "Sorry. Did I say something wrong?" said Marvin, dragging himself on regardless. "Pardon me for breathing, which I never do anyway, so I don't know why I bothered to say it. Oh God, I'm so depressed. Here's another one of those self-satisfied doors. Life. Don't talk to me about life." "No one even mentioned it," muttered Arthur irritably. "Ford, are you all right?" Ford stared at him. Did the robot say Zaphod Beetlebrox? He said. Oh, dang. Yeah, Mom. There you go. I've had enough of you, August. Okay. Chapter 12. Sorry, Cookie, that is fair. A loud clatter of gunk music flooded through the heart of Gold cabin as Zaphod searched the sub-ether radio wave bands for news of himself. The machine was rather difficult to operate. For years, radios had been operated by means of pressing buttons and turning dials. Then, as technology became more sophisticated, the controls were made touch-sensitive. You merely had to brush the panels with your fingers. Now all you had to do was wave your hand in the general direction of the components and hope. It saved a lot of muscular expenditure, of course, but it meant that you had to sit infuriatingly still if you wanted to keep listening to the same program. Zaphod waved a hand, and the channel switched again. More gunk music, but this time it was a background to a news announcement. The news was always heavily edited to fit the rhythm of the music. And news reports brought to you here on the sub-ether wave band, broadcasting around the galaxy around the clock, squawked a voice. And we'll be saying a big hello to all intelligent life forms everywhere. And to everyone else out there. The secret is to bang the rocks together. The secret is to bang the rocks together, guys. And, of course, the big news story tonight is the sensational theft of the new improbability drive prototype ship by none other than Galactic President Zaphod Beetlebrox. And the question everyone's asking is, has the Big Z finally flipped? Beetlebrox, the man who invented the pan-galactic gargle blaster, ex-confidence trickster, once described by eccentric Columbits as the best bang since the big one, and recently voted the worst dressed sentient being in the known universe for the 7th time. Has he got an answer this time? We asked his private brain care specialist, Gag Halfront. The music swirled and dived for a moment. Another voice broke in, presumably Halfront. He said, "Well, Zaphod's just this guy, you know." But got no further because an electric pencil flew across the cabin and through the radio's on-off sensitive airspace. Zaphod turned and glared at Trillian. She had thrown the pencil. "Hey," he said, "what'd you do that for?" Trillian was tapping her fingers on a screen on a screen full of figures. I've just thought of something," she said. "Yeah? Worth interrupting a news bulletin about me for? You hear enough about yourself as it is. I'm very insecure. You know that." "Can we drop your ego for a moment? This is important." "If there's anything more important than my ego around, I want it caught and shot now." Zaphod glared at her again, then laughed. "Listen," she said. "We picked up those couple of guys." "What couple of guys?" "The couple of guys we picked up." "Oh, yeah," said Zaphod. "Those couple of guys. We picked them up in sector ZZ9 plural Z Alpha." "Yeah," said Zaphod and blinked. Trillian said quietly, "Does that mean anything to you?" Said Zaphod. ZZ9 plural Z Alpha. ZZ9 plural Z Alpha. "Well," said Trillian. What does the Z mean?" said Zaphod. "Which one?" "Anyone." One of the major difficulties Trillian experienced in her relationship with Zaphod was learning to distinguish between him pretending to be stupid just to get people off their guard, pretending to be stupid because he couldn't be bothered to think and wanted someone else to do it for him, pretending to be outrageously stupid to hide the fact he actually didn't understand what was going on, and really being genuinely stupid. He was renowned for being amazingly clever, and quite clearly was so. But not all the time, which obviously worried him, hence the act. He preferred people to be puzzled rather than contemptuous. This, above all, appeared to Trillian to be genuinely stupid. But she could no longer be bothered to argue about it. She sighed and punched up a star map on the Visi screen so she can make it simple for him. Whatever his reasons for wanting it to be that way. There, she pointed. Right there. Hey, yeah, said Zaphod. Well, she said. Well, what? Parts of the inside of her head screamed at other parts of the inside of her head. She said, very calmly, it's the same sector you originally picked me up in. He looked at her and then looked back at the screen. Hey, yeah, he said. Now that is wild. We should have zapped straight into the middle of the Horsehead Nebula. How did we come to be there? How did we come to be there? I mean, that's nowhere. She ignored this. Improbability drive, she said patiently. You explained it to me yourself. We passed through every point in the universe. You know that. Yeah, but that's one wild coincidence, isn't it? Yes. Picking someone up at that point, out of the whole of the universe to choose from, that's just too... I want to work this out. Computer! The serious cybernetic shipboard computer, which controlled and permeated every particle of the ship, switched into communication mode. Hi there, it said brightly, and simultaneously spewed out a tiny ribbon of ticker tape, just for the record. The ticker tape said, Hi there! Oh, God, said Zaphod. He hadn't worked with this computer for long, but had already learned to loathe it. The computer continued, brash and cheery as if it was selling detergent. I want you to know that whatever your problem, I'm here to help you solve it. Yeah, said Zaphod. Look, I think I'll just use a piece of paper. Sure thing, said the computer, spilling out its message into the waste bin at the same time. I understand. If you ever want... Shut up, said Zaphod, and snatched up a pencil, sat down next to Trillian at a console. And snatching up a pencil, sat down at a console. Sorry, that was a disaster of a sentence. Okay, said the computer in a hurt tone of voice, and closed down its speech channel again. Zaphod and Trillian pored over the figures that the improbability flight path scanner flashed silently in front of them. Can we work out, said Zaphod, from their point of view what the improbability of their rescue was? Yes, that's a constant, said Trillian. 2 to the power of 276,709 to 1 against. That's high. They're two lucky guys. Yes. But relative to what we were doing when the ship picked them up, Trillian punched up the figures. They showed 2 to the power of infinity minus 1 against. Minus 1 to 1 against. An irrational number that only has conventional meaning in improbability physics. It's pretty low, continued Zaphod with a slight whistle. Yes, agreed Trillian, and looked at him quizzically. That's one big whack of improbability to be accounted for. Something pretty improbable has got to show up on the balance sheet if it's all going to add up to a pretty sum. Zaphod scribbled a few sums, crossed them out, and threw the pencil away. Bat stews. I can't work this out. Well, Zaphod knocked his two heads together in irritation and gritted his teeth. Okay, he said. Computer. The voice circuit sprang to life again. Why, hello there, they said. Ticker tape, ticker tape. All I want to do is make your day nicer and nicer and nicer. Yeah, well, shut up and work something out for me. Sure thing, chatted the computer. You want a probability forecast based on improbability data, yeah. Okay, said the computer. The computer continued. Here's an interesting little notion. Did you realize that most people's lives are governed by telephone numbers? A pain look crawled across one of Zaphod's faces and on to the other one. Have you flipped? He said. No. No, but you will when I tell you that. Trillian gasped. She scrabbled at the button on the improbability flight path screen. Telephone number, she said. Did that thing say telephone number? Numbers flashed up on the screen. The computer had paused politely, but now it continued. What I was about to say was that... Don't bother, please, said Trillian. Look, what is this, said Zaphod. I don't know, said Trillian. But those aliens, they're on their way up to the bridge with that wretched robot. Can we pick them up on any monitor cameras? And I think for now, I'm going to call it there for the evening. We have done excellently today. That feels short, but actually it's pretty good. It's pretty good. We did a pretty good length of stream there. We will continue on with this next Saturday. I hope it goes well. I had a lot of fun with that chapter. It was very good. I don't know. I like the little asides that Douglas Adams seems to do, you know, when he's going on about that poor scientist who got lynched for being clever. But yes, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna check real quick who is about. You know what? You know who we haven't seen for a while? We haven't seen Neon Genesis. He is a Final Fantasy VII speedrunner. He is a very, very good one, and he is a very friendly guy. So please, please drop by for the raid, say hello, follow him if you like. It would be a good thing to do. He is a really chill guy. I will see you on Monday for more Final Fantasy 8. Have a good night. Sleep well when you go. If it is not your bedtime, have a great time zone, and I will see you tomorrow.